We place a lot of value on outcomes. If a relationship ends in heartbreak or doesn't begin at all, then the whole thing was worthless. We forget to be grateful for the deep, intangible, and sacred moments that were shared. And those moments, good or bad, are beyond priceless. Welcome back, everybody, to part 3 of an overanalyzation of the dynamic between Ada Wong and Leon S. Kennedy in the Resident Evil series. Now, I'm going to be straight up with you lot. This episode is going to be extremely laid back. It's not going to be in the same vein as the previous two. You don't have to watch this video. You can have it on in the background. There's not going to be much going on in terms of visualization. Previously, we looked at the original Resident Evil 2 and also Resident Evil 4. Now we're going to be looking at 3 animated features from the Resident Evil series. 2 movies and then 1 television show, which is Resident Evil Degeneration, Resident Evil Infinite Darkness, and Resident Evil Damnation. And the reason why this episode's not going to be in the same vein, one, the overanalyzation is going to be complete peak this episode. And then also, if there's one thing that I know is to not mess with Japanese studios and their animated pitches. Listen, I'm sure somebody's gonna comment down below. I watched this video and they use clips from that movie. Listen, honey, the world's not fair, and I'm not going to. I'm not doing that. I do not mess. If there's one thing I've known about being on the internet for a while and being in this content space, is I do not mess with anime. Do not mess with, and I do not mess with infringing on no girl, absolutely not. So we not using any screenshots, we not using no clips. I'm cool. The quote from the very beginning is taken from a review of a romantic sci-fi film by the name of Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind that I really enjoyed. It really spoke to me on a level of taking a step back and not trying to hit milestones in certain relationships with people, and instead being present in the very moment. This is something that a lot of people talk about, but hearing it broken down, it just finally spoke to me. When things don't go as planned, or things don't go the way that we want them to, and they probably never usually do, we always kind of look at it like it's an overall failure, or damn, this isn't going to end up right. And that sort of negativity clouds us from seeing the moments that we do have with that person, or the moments that we did have with that person. That time is still there, or that time has now passed, and we're still stuck on the what could have been instead of what actually was. The relationship between Leon and Ada, it's not exactly ideal. I've been very coy about my thoughts between these two up until now. I've had a lot of thoughts that I've kept to myself just for conciseness of the videos. But this whole entire dynamic, I wouldn't exactly call it healthy, in my opinion. Well, actually, I'm lying. I do consider it healthy. So one thing that I talked about in the original video of RA2 was how I felt that being hung up on a single person, in my opinion, for like a multitude of years, I think overall it's probably been like 20 something years or something, it's not exactly healthy in a real life setting, of course, right? These are fictional characters, so the rules are kind of different. But Leon isn't. He hasn't been hung up on Ada, not in the way that people talk about him, at least. In RE4, I mean, literally as soon as we get into the game, he's already flirting with Hannigan.
Leon, I hope you can hear me. I'm Ingrid Hunnigan. I'll be your support on this mission.
Loud and clear. Somehow I thought you'd be a little older. So the subject's name's Ashley Graham, right?
That's right. She's the daughter of the president. So try to behave yourself, okay?
Hunnigan, is that you?
Finally, the line's jack-free.
Hey, Hunnigan, no glasses.
Forget the glasses. What's the status of the mission?
I've rescued the subject. We're returning home.
You did it, Leon.
Thanks. You know, you're kind of cute without those glasses. Give me your number when I get back.
May I remind you that you're still on duty.
Story of my life.
Which, I'm not gonna lie to you, I didn't mention this in the video because I didn't think it was actually important, but it actually does kind of come up later on. Like, he flirts with Hunnigan so often in that game, and it was actually really, I'm not gonna lie to you, it was actually pretty uncomfortable. And my discomfort came from no other reason than the fact that Hunnigan clearly just wasn't like engaged at all and just was trying to let him down as easily as she could, but he clearly wasn't getting the hint or just didn't care to notice, I guess. And we'll come back to this because this sort of behavior does kind of tie into where I'm going through in this video. Not the way he was going about talking to Hunnigan, because I've already said it, I felt extremely uncomfortable when he was talking to Hunnigan. And before anybody comes, listen, it's an animated character. I'm not calling for anything. I don't care. These aren't real people. Leave me alone. I'm not saying anything what you think. I'm not an internet person, okay? Again, this is an overanalyzation of two fake people. Get off my back, old man. Or, old, what? Shut up. So let's quickly move on to our first animated feature in Resident Evil Degeneration. This film takes place 1 year after the events of Resident Evil 4. Leon is sent by the White House to help out with a new outbreak in an airport called Harvardville. During the operation, he meets this woman called Angela Miller. Also, Claire Redfield is in this movie, and he meets up with her as well. But at least for most of what I'll be talking about, I'm just going to be talking about his interactions with Angela Miller, as she is the love interest for Leon in this film. Now, making a callback to Resident Evil 4, when we see Leon's first mission, where after he's been forced into being a agent for the government after the events of RE2. In Resident Evil 4, we see him at the beginning of the game completely detached, like a hollow husk of who he used to be. And in this movie, my lord, he is genuinely, like, this is the most, I know like for some people this is probably like, oh my gosh, Leon is so emo, he's so detached. For me, I was like, Jesus Christ, is he okay? Like, this is not a person anymore. This is a robot, genuinely. He is completely just desensitized to everything when we first meet him in this movie. So they spark up a bit of a romance in this film, Angela and Leon. And his tactics, for a lack of a better words, it's very different from Resident Evil 4. In Resident Evil 4, he was very much just like in your face. So, why don't we catch dinner sometime? Well, now that the operation is over, why don't I show you the D virus? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it was like, Jesus Christ, dude, like, calm down, honestly. It should be mentioned, like, this is a personality trait that he did not have in Resi 2. Ada was doing all of, like, the more romantic things. Leon was very, I don't want to say silent, but he made it known that he had feelings for Ada, but he was still kind of like apprehensive, whereas starting in RE4, he was just like blatant out, like, hey, I like you, like, let's do something, like, come on. And in this film, I guess he kind of learned from Hannigan's pushback. Overanalyzation. I know, overanalyzation. He probably like learned from Hannigan's like pushback in that game that maybe I should, like ease up a bit. The very first instance of him making his feelings for Angela known, by the way, this is the first time they meet, Angela and Leon. He kind of just like stares at her for a while after she finishes a sentence. And I remember when I was watching it for the first time, I was like, what's going on? I was like, are they about to try and like what's going? I was so uncomfortable. It was really awkward. I'm not gonna lie, it was extremely awkward because it just came out of nowhere. But at least he wasn't like as pushy as he used to be. With Angela, he's kind of just trying to, I don't want to say feel her out, but just like make her feel comfortable, see if this is something that she's okay with first before he, just kind of like goes all in, for lack of better words. Another instance of him kind of just like testing the waters to see how she feels about him was before they went on another mission in the film. He goes, he kind of has this like stumble with his words, and as soon as like Angela's about to leave, he goes, Angela, you're not alone. We're together in this. And then she's all like, I know. And kind of gives this like smile, and that was really cute. I'm really happy that Leon isn't, again, going back to that other point about being hung up on some. I'm glad that Leon is still, trying to get out there and date, and isn't just like, Ada's the only one for me, you know what I mean? Because that's to each their own. I think of that one romantic comedy that I watched. When did I watch this? It must have been this year. Yeah. Oh my gosh, that was actually 3 months ago. Jesus. Oh wait, no, that was 2 months ago. It's a film with Anne Hathaway. It's called The Idea of You. Now, and by the way, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, I recommend you watch it. And if you are into romantic films in the same way that I recommended 2 films in the first part, The Idea of You, I'm not recommending you watch that. That's only for people who are actually into like romantic comedies and aren't going for it for like realism or like moral standards and all that. If you're the type of person who sees romantic comedies and goes, oh, this isn't real, do not watch that film. Honestly, don't even watch the other films that I gave to you. I just feel like those films are enjoyable even if you're not into it's. The Idea of You takes a lot of, this is a movie. It takes a lot. This is a movie. just so you know. So, like, I guess this is kind of a light spoiler for the film, not too much, but essentially one of the concepts of the movie had to deal with not letting the love that these two people have for each other disable them from experiencing life. These two people should not be together for the current time, and so they have to go and live their lives separated from each other. And if they fall in love with somebody else, then they fall in love with somebody else. They're not going to, shun potential other people coming into their lives and falling for them just because they like each other. Am I explaining this correctly? Essentially what I'm trying to say is that I'm glad that Leon is actually going out of his way to try and find, somebody, and he's not just like hung up on this woman who's doing this like push and pull thing. I like you, but I don't want to be like, he's still out here doing his thing. My mantra is, if you're single, want to have a little fun? Hey! So Leon does kiss Angela in the film, which is different from what? No, he does kiss Ada. I was thinking Ada was the one who kissed. No, Leon is the one that kisses Ada, but Ada was the one who made it known that she liked Leon first, and then afterwards he kissed her. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. This has nothing to do with anything. I'm just like thinking out loud as I'm talking. But so Leon is the one who kisses Angela in the film, and then he just kind of leaves. But before he does leave, Angela actually asks him out, and he agrees. So I hope you all don't mind me sort of interjecting right here. I'm not gonna lie to you. I've had many notes that I've had to scrap throughout these videos about like relationships and stuff like that, because I'm gonna keep it a rack with you. This was not supposed to be a series. Like I was supposed to, the Resident Evil 2 video was supposed to be the start and the end of this. The only reason why I made this into a series was because of something that I remembered from Resident Evil 4. And so I played Resident Evil 4, and that line just was not in the game at all. And I was confused. And that's when I remembered, oh, that line is only in the remake. It's not in the original. So I had to redo all of my notes of Resident Evil 4 because I was writing for a sequence that just doesn't even happen in the game. But so I'm just all like, I really want to talk to y'all about certain things, but I haven't been able to because I had to rewrite things. But anyways, I hope you don't mind here. I do kind of like this, going back to the first quote, of how relationships that start or relationships that don't go anywhere or experiences that we have with other people, they're all valuable. Even if they have negative outcomes or even if they don't go in the way that we want them to. Spoiler alert, Angela's never heard from again in the Resident Evil franchise, to my knowledge. Her and Leon clearly just don't work out, which is fine. The experience that Leon had with her was still of complete and absolute value. I mean, we saw him for the very first time. Actually, no, this isn't the very first time. Leon had feelings for Ada as well, and he did not make it known until she showcased that she had feelings for... Interesting. It was just like RE4. He was just... RE4... Leon was just... Leon... I don't know what that fool was on, yo. I don't know what that fool was on, yo. But yeah, again, this experience that he had with Angela, it was still of value, it was still of substance. And I'll tell you all about something that, you know, happened to me, or I should say that I did to myself, I guess. So I've been pretty transparent that there is a very special person in my life, and we have a similar dynamic surrounding Ada and Leon. And in like the most private way I can say this, I would have been Leon in Resident Evil 2, and they would have been Ada in Resident Evil 2. And so after, you know, we parted ways, I was all like, you know, love ain't real. Might as well have fun. Hey! That wasn't my thought process, but that's kind of just what happened, right? I went a little bit crazy. And that's when I met a certain person. Now, for people who are avid viewers of the channel, this is the story of the 6-foot girl without the more explicit details. So this story needs a bit of setup, and I'm going to say 2 sentences that are going to make hopefully all of you raise an eyebrow. Because if you don't raise an eyebrow, that might be a bit concerning, but it's going to raise an eyebrow, and I want you to think genuinely and actually listen to what I'm saying when I say this. I feel I would like to be in a relationship with somebody that I feel comfortable being around. Now, there are, like I predicted, a lot of people are raising eyebrows and going, well, obviously, everybody wants that. Yes, everybody wants that. Everybody says that. But a lot of people's actions showcase the complete opposite, in my opinion. You know, a lot of people are in relationships with somebody who exhibits a certain behavior or does certain things or says certain things, and it irritates you. It makes you mad. But you don't say anything. Not because you're not bothered, not because you don't care. It's because you just can't. You know what I mean? And you let that resentment build up for your partner. You get angrier and angrier with them when they exhibit this behavior that they don't even have any knowledge that angers you. And you just one day build up until you just explode on them out of nowhere. And it's just like, if you really felt comfortable being around that person, you probably would have felt comfortable telling them that you didn't like something that they were doing. You know what I mean? So that's being with somebody that I'm comfortable with is something that means a lot to me. Now, that was set up for what I actually want to say. Consent is a really important thing for me. As a person who's been put in many situations where people have misinterpreted my friendship or my being around them and have forcefully just pushed their sexual interest onto me without my agreement is actually pretty concerning. I didn't even realize this was an issue. I didn't even realize that consent meant so much for me until I met somebody who actually cared about asking me before pushing these actions onto me. Currently referring to the 6-foot girl. Like, what they did, what they bestowed upon me was... it was so little, but it did so much for my psyche because I didn't even consciously know that this was something that I needed for people to do with me, instead of what I always felt like around people who just did that was like a piece of meat that people wanted to ravage. You know, that person, they made me feel like this was something that they actually cared about my, I don't want to say safety, but they actually cared about my feelings when it came to this interaction, instead of just treating me like nothing, I guess. I have no interest in this person. They probably don't have any interest in me, but I still think about them quite often because I'm just all like, what they gave to me is something that nobody, the compassion that they gave to me and the experience that they gave to me was something that nobody has ever, I've never felt like my opinion ever mattered when it came to certain things. And I'm just forever grateful that they did that for me, because in the cleanest way I can say that, they unlocked a realm of possibilities for me afterwards. I messed up. I meant unlimited. You know, it doesn't matter because I'm not giving y'all any more stories. So this takes us to Resident Evil Infinite Darkness. Now, this takes place 1 year after the events of Degeneration. That's how we know that nothing ever came about with Angela. Because just straight out the cut, Leon is flirting again with another woman called Shen. And he's back to his Resident Evil 4 antics. This time, thankfully, with the woman who's actually interested. And he just comes at her just straight out the gate. Just asks her out to dinner. Just there, that's the first exchange that they have. I'm like 99% sure those are the first words that Leon says to her, is asking her out on a date. Shen Mei. Now, I'm gonna keep it a rack. I told y'all this is a lax episode. Literally nothing that happens in Infinite Darkness is pertinent to the story between Leon and Ada. There's an outbreak in the White House. Leon comes in, saves the day, of course, yada yada yada, blah blah blah. Claire is also present in this series as well. And one thing I want to highlight is how at the end of the show, Claire and Leon have a bit of a disagreement about exposing the truth behind the most recent outbreak. Claire, I believe, wants to give all the evidence to the press and just whistle blow the whole thing, and Leon he's hesitant. It's clear he still wants to hold ties to his government duties. And throughout the whole entire series, Claire says this one phrase: "Leon, that outfit doesn't suit you." Now, reading between the lines of why she keeps re-saying that phrase, Claire clearly picks up on the fact that Leon's government ties isn't him and doesn't suit him, for a lack of better words. Again, this is a position that Leon didn't ask for. He didn't aspire for this. He was forced into blackmailed into his government ties, to his government position. In RE4, we can clearly see this is not something that he wants to do. In Degeneration, or I keep getting in the previous whatever we watched, Degeneration. In Degeneration, I mean, he was a complete bot for most of that movie. And in this series, this is the first time that somebody else finally says what we've all seen. Like, this isn't him. This isn't something that he wants to do. This is not somewhere that he wants to be. And Claire's just all like, this clearly isn't you. And they go their separate ways. Leon continues to be part of, this I don't know how to say it, this government coup, like this government group. And by the way, I was also wondering myself, like, why does he stay? And then I'm realizing he literally can't leave. He literally can't leave. I forget how they blackmailed him, but it had something to do with like Sherry. Forgive me, I did not talk about Sherry I did not think it was going to be. I thought the RE2 video was going to be the only one that I made. Okay, I didn't know I was going to make this. I was like, ah! This brings us to our final entry in this video, which is Resident Evil Damnation. So, for the premise of this movie, Leon is called off from very much in the middle of his vacation, and he's called into an ongoing war that's taken place in a country called the Eastern Slav Republic. We see Leon in the middle of the operation when he's ordered to evacuate. The American soldiers are told to evacuate as they're pulling out of the country. But he refuses because he knows that BOW's enemies like the Tyrants or enemies like the Lickers or the Plagas are still very much active in the country. Like, who's going to save these people if we're just pulling out and we're not helping them anymore? And so he goes against the government's orders and he stays in the country to help out. Ada is also here in this film. My God, finally. And so what she does is she's working with the Bioterrorism Security Alliance, the BSAA, to help the country's leaders with eradicating BOW activity within their nation. But of course, this is Ada, so there's always something up. The main thing that I believe that should be taken away from this film in terms of Leon and Ada's development is the fact that, at least going into the next video, is that the country's leaders, specifically the president, finds out that Ada is in fact not working with the BSAA. She's not a part of their crew at all. She's actually a spy. And so at the end of that film, they send out a whole entire international warrant out for the arrest of Ada Wong. Woo! I don't want to spoil where we're going next. I mean, if you're a Resident Evil fan, you probably already know where we're going next, but I don't want to spoil anything. Ada ends up destroying the Slavic BOW facility and took the Plaga that they were harboring. Now, Leon and Ada do cross paths in this film. This is the first time that they have any sort of interaction since the events of Resident Evil 4, but the dialogue within this film showcases that they did have some sort of get together between the events of Resident Evil 4 and the events of this film, and it's clearly insinuating some sort of, you know, it's insinuating like there was a night out where they had something going on, but they had to call it off for some reason. They clearly still have a thing going on, but you know, they can't really do anything right now as they're on missions. So their missions are done. Leon's mission is a success. Ada's mission is a success. Except when Ada reports to her higher ups, she debates on whether to send the Plaga to her employer. This isn't the first time Ada has been combative with... Oh, wait, no. Okay, I was remembering something from Resident Evil 4 Remake, but I'm realizing it does happen in Resident Evil 4 as well. But it just happens at a different time. Ada has been combative with the people who've employed her since Resident Evil 4. There's a bit more that happens in Remake from what I'm remembering. This film is the first time that Leon has disobeyed direct orders. And this, at the end of this film, after Ada is debating about sending what she came for to her employer, Leon is also questioning the actions of the American government during this war. He's just all like, like, the Americans played these people for no other reason than their own interest, and I was a part of this. And I feel like we're seeing him struggle some more with this position that was, again, forced upon him that he wanted no part of. Leon clearly still wants to save and help people, but the politics of just these governments clashing with the entire world, and it just goes against his ideals. And we're seeing him just like slowly break down because of that. And this is the first time we've seen him be combative with the orders that he's been given. They're both I shouldn't say finally, but they're both, Ada and Leon are in the exact same predicament. I feel like Leon's mentality can really be summed up with this quote that he leaves at the end of the film, and he's talking to Hannigan, and he's like, "Don't worry, I'm not going anywhere." In the end, nothing's really changed. Then he walks off. I have no clue what we're in store for, but right now, Ada Wong is a international fugitive, and Leon is questioning his ties with the American government. Not exactly a happy note to leave off on, but there's always rain before the rainbow.